Most people think sugar is the main thing wrecking their metabolism, but there's something else hiding in everyday foods that does far more damage. And once it is in your system, it can stay in your body for years. It's one of the biggest drivers of chronic disease and stubborn weight gain, the kind that sticks to you no matter how clean you eat, and almost nobody realizes they're consuming it every single day. So I'm going to explain what this toxic ingredient is and these simple two-step process you can use to start pulling it out of your body fast. Linoleic acid is a type of omega-6 fat. It's found in large amounts in common seed oils like soybean, corn, canola. These are being tucked into so many packaged goods now. It is technically omega-6 considered essential. You do need healthy forms of omega-6 essential acid. Your body just needs a small amount to function. I'm talking 1 to 2% of your daily calories. If you're eating whole, unprocessed foods, you'll get enough omega-6, the amount that you need naturally. But today, in today's world, we've taken that 1 to 2% and turned it into 20% of the calories we're intaking on a daily basis. And for some Americans and many industrialized nations around the world, omega-6 fats now make up as much as 24% of their daily calories. That is not a minor excess. That is a massive overload, and it is not an accident. Seed oil consumption has increased 25-fold in the past century. It's been baked, pun intended, into the food system, literally. Today, linoleic acid is hiding in nearly everything. Salad dressings, that whole condiment section of your fridge or your pantry, protein bars, mayonnaise, roasted nuts, chips, crackers, tortillas, even healthy keto snacks, rancid oils, seed oils. So if you're not actively avoiding seed oils, you're probably eating linoleic acid every single day. And then here's the worst part. Once it's in your body, it doesn't just pass through like carbohydrates do or sugar does. It gets stored in your fat tissue, your liver, even your brain, and it leaves the body incredibly slow. In fact, it could take up to 6 years to fully flush it out of the body. That is not a made-up figure. 6 years. So here's what that actually means for your health. It is the #1 driver of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, the fastest growing condition in the world. It's linked to 62% increased risk of death from all causes. 60% of your brain is made of fat. So when that fat is built with linoleic acid instead of healthier, more stable forms of fat, it affects how you think, how you feel, and how you age. But there is good news, and it's what I want to show you next. It turns out that there is a way to start flushing this out and getting rid of this fat fast. And it only takes 2 steps. However, you have to do both steps because if you leave one out, you won't get the results that I'm about to show you that they found in the study. So let's start with step number 1, giving your body the right fat to build with. Studies show that the fat you need is called EPA. It is one of the healthy omega-3 fats that are typically found in animal sources of omega-3. High quality fish oil, for example, eating fish, freshwater fish. Here's why it matters. Your body is made up of trillions of cells. When your cells don't work right, they get inflamed, they stop healing, they stop communicating. That's what leads to the bigger problems of fatigue, weight gain, and chronic disease. But when you give your body EPA, it starts to rebuild your cells the right way. It's like remodeling your house. If the old walls are made of cheap, weak materials, you got to pull them out and then you got to rebuild them with something stronger. Okay, but it's a process and it's a little bit messy and it does take time. That's what EPA helps your cells do. Rebuild, repair, and strengthen. Let alone all the new buildings you're building, new cells you're making them out of good fats. Now, I want to be clear. It does not happen overnight, but your body knows what to do when you give it the right tools. And EPA is one of those tools. Note that if you're going to use fish oil for that source, because if you're like Nurse Livingood and I, you don't eat enough fish with myself and with the little Livingoods. It's just not a normal part of our rhythm. She doesn't quite enjoy it, so we don't usually make it. Then you use a supplementation, but you got to make sure it's high quality, one that is very rich in EPA and not a blend of cheap fillers, and definitely not one with soybean oil because that would be direct linoleic acid, and not one that's in a clear container so that it can oxidize and get unstable. It needs to have a high oxidation score and be protected. If you need a concentrated dose that's easy to get the right amount of EPA EPA and DHA, its friend, actually double the amount that a person would normally need. I did put a link to it below of the one that I use and that I take. It's one of our most popular. You can check that out. But however, remember that EPA by itself isn't enough. Okay, this next step's super important. Your body just won't swap it out on its own. You've got to create the right conditions to actually burn the stored fat and then let EPA do its job. And that's where step 2 comes in. This is where you turn on your body's fat burning system. Check out this study. Repeated fasting and refeeding with EPA, a novel approach for rapid fatty acid exchange. Fatty acid exchange. That's your keywords right there. And by the way, it has this massive impact on your blood pressure levels and your triglyceride levels because you're unlocking the platelet adhesions. All this got better in 13 days. So I want to introduce you to short fasting. It's not extreme. I'm talking about going without food for 20 to 24 hours. Okay. So once or twice a week, that's it. You can still do it longer if you're more into fasting, 3-day fast, things like that. But just once or twice a week to stimulate this. You can still have things like water. You can still have some black coffee. You can still have some electrolytes. I'm okay with all of those things. Still take your supplements, but the goal is simple. Give your body a break from constant digestion. Now, why does that work? During that fasting window, your body stops pulling energy from food and it starts pulling it from stored fat. And you can break down and release that linoleic acid. The linoleic acid finally starts to move out of the system when there's this brief period of quick fasting, short fasting. But here's what most people miss. If you're not giving your body something better to rebuild with, like EPA, you'll just recycle the same junk fat over and over again. So step 1 is removing all of those rancid oils and really understanding those, okay, from the body. You do the short fasting, and while you're doing it, before and after, you add in proper doses of EPA. I would do 300 plus milligrams a day. Only when you fast and feed your body the right fat will changes start to happen. So in this study, participants follow this exact combination: EPA supplementation, short fasting, and refeeding cycles. And when I say refeeding, I just mean what you eat right after the fast. And this is a detail that I've not specified, that right after your fast, that first meal matters. It's your chance to rebuild cells as you're in a cleanup mode from doing that short fast. And the right fat going in, like EPA, is what those cells are going to be made out of. After 13 days, 20 participants, 20 men, using fish oil, plasma phospholipids showed an increase from 2 to 5.9. That's a 300% increase in the EPA in the system and a decrease in the linoleic acid from 29.8 down to 22.6. That percentage drop is 24.3% in 13 days. Blood pressure change, diastolic blood pressure change, significant decrease in the platelets and the clumping in the blood. The extracellular matrix got better. Extracellular got better. Intracellular got better. Also, triglycerides got better. This reduction pulled the bad fat out of the cells and started breaking it down. The half-life of this stuff is over 2 years. The length that it stays in your system is almost 6 years. A toxic fat that normally takes years to leave your body dropped by over a quarter in less than 2 weeks. That is powerful. Can't believe more people aren't talking about this study. EPA alone didn't do it. Fasting alone didn't do it. It was the 2 steps together that triggered the shift. You create the window, then you refill it with the right material. A healthy fat meal as your first meal after a short fast, 20 to 24 hours, taking EPA before, on that day, and your first meal back is a healthy fat. It's not just pure fat. I'm saying healthy fat. It'll be a good time to have a fish dinner, but good healthy fats, avocados and olive oils, but ideally animal forms. That's how you flush out bad fat and start rebuilding your body cell by cell. If you need the eating plan of how to identify the list of don't eat these, careful of these, they got to be specific types, enjoy these, and then an advanced short fasting, I call it rotational eating. That plan is in my book. Here's the food list. Here's the short fasting rotational eating plan. It's our advanced challenge is what we call it. You can incorporate that in and start adding. You're focused on quality foods, but then you add in this EPA, which I said the EPA and DHA that I take, my omegas, and I add turmeric to it as well. Omega plus turmeric. That link is below, okay, if you need to see that. But there's also a link to grab grab one of my books for free. The link for that is below as well. That'll give you kind of the game plan so you can implement this. But fascinating, this study in 13 days, the impact you make. Imagine if you did it for 30. Imagine if you did it for 300. It's incredible. So now that you've learned how to flush out the most toxic fat in your body fast, what happens next is just as important. Because once that fat starts moving, you've now extracted it from the cells. It doesn't just vanish. It has to be filtered through your liver and your kidneys. That's what's got to deal with breaking that down and getting rid of it, especially these toxins of rancid fat. And so if those filters are already overloaded, you'll just end up restoring the fat elsewhere, reusing it, recycling it elsewhere. It's called the rebounding effect, and you retoxify. So in the next video, I will show you how to clean your body's filters, flush out those toxins, and start to finally repair the damage. It's a 12-hour masterclass that I condensed into 20 minutes, and it could be the missing piece to your full recovery. Click here to watch it next, and I'll see you over there.